Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Extraordinary Unlocked. This is episode 0, and my name is Eugin, and I'll be hosting this podcast and interviewing people that get a chance to share about how they unlocked extraordinary in their own lives. This is very new for me, but it's been something that's been brewing inside of me for some time, and where it came from is really my own origin story. And I'm going to go through it very quickly. There won't be a podcast host asking me the questions, but being able to share about my career journey and how extraordinary was unlocked in my own life. And so it rewind back to graduating from college. I graduated from the University of Illinois at Chicago with a major in biology, not knowing what I was going to do. And I took my first job out of college, which was in a chemistry lab at a pharmaceutical company. I was just happy to start getting paid as a contractor. Didn't have health insurance, but started making the most money I've ever made outside of working at a place like Starbucks or a convenience store. And so I was extremely content. I was making money. I was just doing my thing. And on the side, I actually was an urban youth pastor. I did that for 10 years, serving in the north side of the city of Chicago. And it was an incredible experience. During the week, I was earning my day job, earning money as a chemist, as a wet chemist or a quality control chemist, whatever you want to call it, running HPLC, doing titrations, running assays. And in the evening, I would be doing ministry work and working with urban teens on the north side. And because I was so young, I mean, I was in my early 20s, I just had abundant energy, abundant time, and I was living at home with my parents, so I had some money. I wouldn't say abundant. I thought it was abundant, but not that much money. And so as I did this, I got married. I was still a chemist and I did chemistry for 10 years. And in the midst of that, I got married. I had my first kid, was still doing chemistry work. And I realized as I looked down the road, this ain't it. And I also understood I need to provide for my family. My wife was at home with our first child. And even in urban ministry, if you're someone that's an urban pastor, like it is definitely not for the money that you're doing it. And so I actually applied for this job. It was a supervisor in training and development, had never managed people, never done this before. And I threw my hat in the ring. I applied for the job. I submitted my resume, didn't talk to my wife about it at all. And then I told her after the fact, hey, I applied for this job, but I don't think I'm going to get it. I don't stand a chance. I actually got a phone screen. And the phone screen went so well, they said, hey, would you be willing to come to corporate? We'd love to interview you in person. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this may be changing things. So interviewed for the job, and what they liked is that I had the subject matter expertise of being in the chemistry lab, but also had a way to connect with people. And I really referenced my pastoral background of being able to connect with people. And so I actually got hired for the job and started managing a learning management system and doing things that I had never done before and keeping people's training and compliance and doing new hire orientation, which I loved. I loved facilitating. It was something that as a pastor, is preaching in front of people, but also doing new hire orientation and welcoming people to a new organization, standing up, sharing stories, telling jokes and getting people engaged and excited in a new company. And so I knew that there was something there. I knew like, okay, that I want to leverage to my strengths. And I know that I was great with people, great with connecting, facilitating, things that not everyone can do. But then I attended my first leadership development seminar and it unlocked something in me. I sat in the course and had an amazing facilitator. To this day, I still remember her name, Paula Mitchell. And Paula, if you're watching, I owe so much to you. But after that leadership development seminar, I went right up to Paula and said, Paula, these 3 days have been life changing. And I want to know, how do I do what you do? And she actually became my mentor. Really didn't have to take me on, didn't have to talk to me about her career and what she had done in her career journey. And so she was a consultant and she had given a leadership development program custom made for this company I was working at. And she told me, hey, I'm going to be leaving and they need someone to take on this course. Would you be open to it? I'm like, oh my gosh. So I went to the director of HR at that time and I went to their office. I knocked on the door. I said, "Hey, I know Paula's moving on, but if there's any opportunity or any need for someone to take this on, I'm your guy. I will take it on." And I'll never forget the director of HR just said, "You know what? We just might need somebody. So I'll keep you in mind." And that opportunity arose for me to launch this course for, I think it was like 20 corporate employees. And they were from the corporate section, they were from the chemistry labs, they were from the R&D labs, and brought them together. And it's something that I had never done before. And this is so back in the day. I created all the binders, I scheduled the catering, I rehearsed all the content, I dove deep into it, and for I think it was like 2 8-hour days, straight facilitated, and loved every minute of it. And then at the end of it, this had never happened before, people started clapping, and I was like, "This feels amazing. I can't believe I just did it." And I called Paula after I'd facilitated my first workshop, and I told her, "Paula, this is straight euphoria. I love it. I want to go into it." And I asked her, "Do you think I should pursue my master's in organizational development and leadership?" And she said, "Go for it." And so I talked to my wife about it. At the time, I had 4 kids, 4 young children, really. And I said, "This is something that I'm really passionate about. I don't know, it's like something very, very special. Would you be open to me going back to school?" And she said, "Let's do it. Let's go for it." I couldn't believe it. And I signed up for something so crazy where I was a full-time employee. I was also doing a part-time ministry job at a suburban church. I was going back to school. And I couldn't let any of these 3 balls drop. Oh, and additionally, I was a husband and father, and so I couldn't let any of these balls drop in any of this, and so I streamlined my life. I said, "Okay, I wanna do well in school. I don't wanna be an absent father. I don't wanna be an absent husband, and I still gotta crush it at work." And so, I reoriented my life. I took off Netflix. I fasted from social media at the time, and I just said, "I'm going all in." And I don't know, I don't recommend this to everybody, but I started waking up at 2:30 in the morning. I would go straight to Planet Fitness, work out for a good 30 minutes, shower, and I would get to work at like 4 in the morning, 4:35 AM. And obviously the first person there before work hours, and I would study. I would do my part-time ministry job. I would do my work. I would do my schoolwork, and then I was always on time for work. I just walked to my desk, logged in, and started doing work. And then during my lunch hour, I would study, or I would take a nap in my car, and then wake up ready to go, finishing the day. And I would finish all my schoolwork and everything that I need to do in the mornings so that in the evenings I was available to my family. It was a breakneck pace, but by the grace of God, I'd never done this before. I got straight A's, got 1 A minus, and I had never done that in college, high school, college, seminary, never got straight A's, but this truly unlocked something. And so I actually got my first job as a manager of organizational development at the organization that hired me as a third shift chemist. And so that was such a transformational time. And the executive vice president at the time, Steve Nowicki, he gave me an opportunity to stand up an internal academy, what we called Kabi Academy. And it was for mechatronics. The manufacturing site was going through a transformation, and they needed to upskill their current workers so that they could work on these very automated, very technical lines. And so they gave me 2 head count and said, "Go for it," and pointed me in a direction and gave me the opportunity to launch my first internal education center to upskill our employees. And I'll never forget, COVID hit in the midst of that, and we still found a way. We were so resourceful. We found a way to still continue the classes and to graduate our first class during COVID. None of the family members were there. They couldn't participate, which was super sad. But for many of these graduates, it was the first time they've ever earned college credit. as they completed this program. We had a partnership with a local community college to earn them college credit, and they could continue on and finish. I think it was an associate's degree. I can't remember at this time, but I just knew this was such an amazing moment. And in that, I said, there's got to be more. And I always had my heart on tech. I just knew like that's sort of the future. And I started applying to jobs and roles in tech, and a lot of phone screens, interviews, but nothing actually landed. And then I randomly saw this recruiter reach out from a healthcare tech company, and it was in my junk folder. And I just happened to be cleaning out folders in my email, which I never do that, but it must have been God intervening. And I actually responded, said, "Hey, I could do a phone screen." I did the phone screen, and they said, "We would love to interview you." And during this time, it was COVID, so just did a Zoom call. And on that Zoom call, it was the first time I had ever worked with a healthcare tech company at all. I came suited up, and people were very casual, sweatshirts, t-shirts, and I was like, "Oh, this is a different world." It and I was able to land the job, um, and the rest is history, but I think that is what got me going to understand how there's so much extraordinary that every person has. I know that for those listening, you may feel stuck. And there was a time when I felt really stuck. When I was a chemist in the lab and thinking about like, what's my future going to look like? I just knew I fast forwarded 2 years and I said, man, if I stay in this current position for 2 more years, would I be okay with that? And I said, no, there's no way. And I needed to find something different. I remember also thinking when I was going to go back to grad school, at the time I was in my late 30s and I'm like, am I too old to go back for school? Like, I don't have the time or the money, but I did that visioning exercise of 2 years from today, if I'm doing the exact same thing, which would have, at that time, if I did the master's program, I would have been done. Would I be okay? If I didn't do the master's program, would I be all right? I'd be comfortable. I'd be just doing the same thing. I said, no, absolutely not. I had to go do it. And it just unlocked something in me to go after it. And to this day, that's what gets me so excited about folks that feel stuck. And that may be you listening on this video, listening to this podcast, is feeling stuck, feeling hopeless, feeling like I'm too old, I don't have money, I don't have the time. And I just think back to a quote that really helped me understand where I was at is, if you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right. And that was from Henry Ford. And I actually saw it on a Ford commercial recently. And it's not a matter of resources, but a matter of resourcefulness. And I learned that from a Tony Robbins TED talk that to this day I still rewatch. And so for me, the drive, the conviction is, I've been wanting to do this podcast for over a decade. And I didn't know what it would be about, but I said, I need to do this. And so in 2026, just without a plan, without a script, without knowing, I just went for it. And at the end of 2025, I recorded a few, and now into 2026, beginning to record some more. And I'm pulling on this thread and understanding the different themes that are consistent throughout every journey and every story, that really starts with a stuckness. Like there's just, man, I wish I could do something else, do something different. I don't know what to do. And that there's got to be this conviction inside of you, a conviction that almost like a little fire getting started, knowing that it's small now, but if I were to feed this conviction, I would be fulfilling something. And it leads you to a point of courage, because you have to hit the fork in the road and ask yourself, am I actually going to keep doing this, or am I going to do something different? And I don't know what that different is. I don't know what that path is going to look like. It's not completely scripted. It may be the road less traveled, but through that courage and overcoming the fear of the unknown, it really leads into living out your calling. And I've seen so many people, and you're going to hear that on the podcast, of folks going through this moment of conviction. It's not a I wish I could do it, or maybe I should do it. It's like, I actually must do it. And then getting to the fork in the road and saying, getting over the fear and having the courage to move forward and overcoming the fear and living into your calling. And so Extraordinary Unlocked was born out of that every person, every human has extraordinary that can be unlocked. And going through the different combinations or steps. And that's why they say in the tech world, fail fast. What is actually not going to work gets you closer to actually what will work. And I'm also still on the journey. I haven't solved all of it. There's still a bunch of extraordinary in me, I believe, that still is yet to be unlocked. But as I record these podcasts, that's what the goal is, that you would hear these stories and that it would feed the conviction that each of you have. It would help you realize what fear is holding you back, and then getting to the courage to overcome that fear, to live into your calling. So that's episode 0. I don't know how long it was. It felt like a lot of rambling. Thank you for listening. Be on the lookout for Extraordinary Unlocked podcast, and I'm hopeful that you will reach out and that I can partner with you to help you unlock your extraordinary. Thank you so much. This is Eugene signing off. I will see you next time. Blessings.